Content warnings for ableism, transphobia, gun, shots that some may find disturbing, references to drugs and alcohol, and possibly other things. Feel free to sit this one out.
Well, I watched the new CBS Clarice show, you know, the sequel series to Silence of the Lambs, and I gotta say, it is bad. Get it? Because lambs, in all seriousness, this show does a lot of things very wrong, especially with disability. So, I'm gonna talk about it. Okay, so what you need to know. Okay, so there's this book called Red Dragon. It comes out in 1981, and it's the first book featuring Hannibal Lecter, who's the guy who eats people. A movie adaptation called Manhunter in 1986, starring Brian Cox as Hannibal Lecter. Movie doesn't do too hot. Sequel book written, Silence of the Lambs, comes out in 1988. And then they make a movie in 1991. The movie stars Jodie Foster as Clarice Starling, who's an FBI trainee, who's on the hunt for Buffalo Bill, who's a serial killer that we'll get to in a second. And in order to find him, she talks to Hannibal Lecter, the cannibal, who is now played by Anthony Hopkins. So, Buffalo Bill. This storyline has a lot of transphobia, because Buffalo Bill murders and skins women in order to make a woman suit so he can put on the woman suit so he can become a woman.
ContraPoints and Lindsay Ellis literally just talked about this, but Emily procrastinates on watching videos.
So Silence of the Lambs, the movie, swept at the Oscars. Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins both won Best Actress and Best Actor respectively. The movie won Best Screenplay, Best Directing, and also Best Picture. And then because of this, they decided to make a few more movies. They remade a Red Dragon movie starring Anthony Hopkins. They also came out with a book, Hannibal, and a movie, Hannibal, which, big oof. The publishing company also forced the writer to make a Hannibal Lecter backstory that he didn't want to write. So in the story, the Lafache, who ran Germany in the 1940s, if you get what I'm saying, they make Hannibal Lecter eat his sister. So that's why he's like that. Then there was a show called Hannibal on NBC that was actually about like the pre-Red Dragon sort of era, focusing on Red Dragon's protagonist, Will Graham. And I was pretty obsessed with this show for a short time. But it notably featured characters from Red Dragon, Hannibal, and even Hannibal Rising, but was not able to feature characters who originated in Silence of the Lambs. That's because those rights were being held onto by other people who were trying to make a Clarice series, and now we have that series. So let's watch it. Let's see the reason why Clarice wasn't allowed on NBC's Hannibal. The first shot of the show is this shot of a goldfish because you're gonna wish that you had that bad of a memory after watching this pilot. No, like it literally never comes up again. Fish aren't like a thing. I feel like it was just like the most aesthetic thing in the room. So they were like, yeah, that for the opening shot. Let's just get their eyeballs. Okay, so it's 1 year after Silence of the Lambs takes place. She's talking about Buffalo Bill in this like entirely too stylized yet exposition dumping intro. I also have to say that the over-stylization kind of feels derivative of Hannibal. It also just feels like it's trying too hard. And also CBS shows are like 5 years behind on the times anyway, so. There's also this scene where she's having the paparazzi take pictures of her with the flash, and it's like this recurring thing, and it's like, okay, she's a cop, not like Princess Diana. The psychiatrist diagnoses her with PTSD from the Buffalo Bill situation. The Buffalo Bill situation being when she kills him, because he almost kills her in the Silence of the Lambs movie. There's also a quick mention of the quid pro quo, which is referencing her talking to Hannibal, but she quickly glosses over that because we don't have the rights to him. Which is also pretty weird because, I don't know, personally, I would be more anxious about the living serial killer who is on the loose, who's obsessed with me, as opposed to the one who's dead, who I don't have to worry about. But I don't know, that's just me. Also, like, at the end of Silence of the Lambs, it's heavily implied that Hannibal Lecter is about to go and eat Frederick Chilton, the jerk who, like, ran the facility where he was staying in. We don't get anything about that because we can't, because again, Frederick Chilton is not a character they have because he originated in Red Dragon. But Clarice is not having this PTSD diagnosis because it would make her life more difficult, but then it also doesn't matter because the mom of the girl who she saved is the Attorney General and she summons her. And this lady, because she saved her daughter, just puts Clarice, like, on this one case of this new serial killer running around DC. So to overcompensate for the characters they don't have, notably Hannibal Lecter, they go in with the ones who they do and they shove them down your throats. So Buffalo Bill is brought up all the time. Catherine, the girl who she saved in the movie. Catherine's mother, Ruth, who was the attorney general. Precious, the dog, Buffalo Bill's dog, who like Catherine is holding on to at the end of the movie. Liked that. I also like how they use Ardelia, Clarice's roommate, who we'll see in a bit. And then they also use Paul Krendler, who was the guy who like had them raid the wrong house and Clarice was the only one looking at the actual place where Buffalo Bill was. And Ruth, that lady, is just like, and he remembers that. Like, and just so you know, he was in the movie, like, I also have to say, CBS doesn't get the best talent for the most part. And I don't know if it's the actors, because many of them are very stiff. That could be a direction thing. It could also be that the writing is really bad. I don't know. But this is in line with a lot of other CBS shows being not good. It's the weakest of the major networks. Like, their Super Bowl, they didn't even show the Gatorade dumping on that coach's headshot. Like, come on. Like, a lot of these people sound very rehearsed.
You're Ruth Martin's drop of honey for the cameras. But this isn't Buffalo territory anymore. We do evidence. Not it's a full moon and I've got a feeling.
Like, dude, you practice that line. So Clarice goes with the FBI and finds a murder victim in this river or whatever, and all her coworkers are like, yep, a weirdo serial killer. But Clarice is unconvinced. She's like, no, these murders feel like forced and soulless and very derivative, you know, like this show. So we get to meet Ardelia, who was her friend in the movie and is now her roommate. I gotta say, like, I do like that this relationship then gets to, like, get more, you know, like, more development. And Ardelia is a really good source of, like, audience surrogate, you know, somebody for Clarice to explain her thought process to. So one of Clarice's coworkers is this guy called Esquivel, and he's portrayed as softer because, unlike the other FBI agents, he isn't mocking her for her literal trauma.
A little lotion for you, Starling. You just gotta rub it on your skin a little. Keep it smooth. Put it in the basket.
But Esquivel has some pretty yikes moments. We'll get to a big one in a sec. Okay, so they go to the family of the deceased woman, and here's where it starts to get bad. So first things first, the husband of the deceased woman is talking about his son, and he's just like,
I never raised a hand to him.
Yeah, I would hope you don't. And then it gets worse, because then he's like,
He has something called autism. You know what that is?
Feels like you can't reach him.
Yes.
bruh, how do you think he feels? This is a two-way street, dude. The frustration, like, neurotypicals will be like, autistic people are frustrating. Like, you're the one frustrating, dude.
And you really had it in the teeth. Why? Why?
Why? Why? Why? Why? Why?
So asking why doesn't, like, really help anything. Like, instead try asking, okay, so, like, what can we do to move forward? Because if you just keep going, like, why? It's just gonna make your kids feel bad and make them feel cursed and, like, a burden and etc. Oh boy. Okay, so they go to the next mother. Her mother had custody of her kid, so she's the one who got murdered, not her. And this woman is houseless. So they go to this, like, place where she is, and when she sees the cops, she runs away. They chase her down. They tackle her, and Esquivel, the softie, might I add, points a gun in her face, and the Clarice is just like, no, we're not in trouble. Like, you could have avoided this, Clarice. Like, when they were chasing her, she could have been like, hey, no, wait, no, stop, you're not in trouble. We just have important information for you. And the gun in her face, seriously, is that necessary? It's not necessary. Stop it. But then she says this, like, terrible thing about her son, where he is.
Place for freaky kids who have to be fed through a tube.
So, you know. Oh, it's convenient that she's a bad person, that the person you tackled sucked, so. Also, really bad representation for houseless people. Oof. Clarice gets, like, benched, sort of, not even. She just, like, isn't allowed, just isn't invited to the next murder scene. And, like, it's an act break, and they act like it's this big deal, but, like, it's fine. It's fine. She's still on the case. Like, this show needs to chill. This show about murder needs to calm down. Take a Xanax, Clarice. Like, she goes into the field later. It's fine. You're fine. While she's on desk duty, Catherine, the girl who she saved from the movie, the well girl, calls her and is super, super creepy for some reason.
Is it you can't look at me?
Because I remind you of him.
She's also really scared about the prospect of there being a new serial killer going around. And, like, sweetie, I have news for you. There is a serial killer on the loose. His name is Hannibal Lecter. Your parents talk to him. You know, the guy who eats people. He's free, so. Also, there are other serial killers in the world. But if it makes you feel any better, like, what are the odds that you're gonna get kidnapped and tortured and tried to be murdered again? Like, you know, you're good. You're fine. It's happened once. It's not gonna happen again. Catherine is also, like, demanding that Clarice be traumatized. And, like, she is. But also, like, why does she expect her to be? She wasn't sitting in a well for, like, a week or whatever. Like, she was just the FBI agent who, like, came along and, like, found him and saw the messed up stuff and then killed him. Like, and she's like, she's like, why are you still okay? Like, because I wasn't trapped in a well for a week, Catherine. And it feels like the only reason she's not over Buffalo Bill in particular is because, like, he's a bad guy who we have the rights to. Not because she would be. So Esquivel calls Clarice from the murder scene and fills her in and tells her that the next victim had a child with facial deformities and...
Lady next door says she had a daughter who was born with pretty severe facial deformities. The child lives in a clinic up in Connecticut.
Casey Lottie's son needed a feeding tube.
And David Bird has autism. Maybe something caused it. Caused all of it.
I'm sorry, this causes deformities, the need for a feeding tube, and autism? Yeah, this part's gonna be done by future me with less stuff in the background and without a wig on and as much makeup. Literally caught in 4K with bad skin. Okay, so they go back to the house of the autistic child and the dad says,
She was in a trial for migraines.
A clinical trial?
But a lot of the kids of those women turned out to be messed up in different ways.
okay, sir, I'm sorry. Did you just refer to your own son as messed up just because he's autistic too? Dude, he's autistic. Like, calm down. Like, I know that it can be difficult. I might have it myself. I have family members who have it, but I made the mistake of being born in the 1990s as a girl. So when my mom asked if I could maybe have that Asperger's thing, the doctor literally told her, no, that's a boy's thing. So, but one thing about film is that you're supposed to show, not tell. And, like, we never see this kid struggle, like, with anything. We don't get clear examples of him suffering. They're acting like his life is some terrible tragedy, and literally every shot we get of him, he's just straight chillin', watching a movie, just chillin'. Portraying autism as some kind of, like, super horrible, scary boogeyman that's a life-ending tragedy is pretty offensive and also pretty dangerous if you ask me. This one jerk called Wakefield made this BS study about how vaccines cause autism. They don't. Study after study has shown that vaccines do not cause autism. But this fear of parents' sweet little babies becoming neurodivergent, or more likely, their anger at the fact that they have a neurodivergent child, has led a lot of parents to not vaccinate their children and to tell other parents not to vaccinate their children. And as somebody who, again, probably has a form of autism, like, yes, it can be very difficult, but most of that is due to the fact that we live in a society. I would much rather be autistic and interesting and feel the elusive kind of happiness that I feel when I rub a makeup brush up against my hand than, like, be dead from rubella or whatever. This show might not be anti-vax, but this idea of big pharma causing autism through nefarious purposes and for nefarious reasons, and if you dare to speak the truth about it, we're gonna have a hitman murder you because that's what's happening here. That might not be, like, anti-vax, but it's close enough to anti-vax for me. Like, it's using similar rhetoric and like logic. And you know what else really, really grinds my gears about how this show portrays autism? Sir Anthony Hopkins, you know, the guy who won an Oscar for his portrayal of Hannibal Lecter. I'm sorry, we don't have the rights to that character. But, you know, the man who, like, in part made this series so iconic, he's autistic. You gonna, like, this show just implied that Sir Anthony Hopkins is messed up. You're really? Really? He's more talented than anybody who put anything into this godforsaken show. And I know that somebody's probably going to say that like those of us like Sir Anthony Hopkins or I who were diagnosed later in life, or in my case, a psychiatrist said, yeah, you're probably autistic, but like, who has the money to get a diagnosis in this country? And okay, so what I'm saying is that people like Sir Anthony Hopkins and I, who find out that we are, or perhaps maybe, possibly, autistic later in life, yes, probably do have very different experiences than non-speaking autistic people who were diagnosed much earlier in life. I can't speak to what it's like to be a non-speaking autistic person. However, non-speaking autistic people have made this amazing short film, especially in response to Sia's movie Music, which is a whole nother bad. Treating nonverbal people like their lives are tragedies, or like their children if they're adults, or likening them to inanimate objects variety is super offensive and denies the rich personhood that they have, and minimizes the very rich inner lives they might have, their experiences, their interests, their loves, their desires, their wants, their needs, their fears, their things that writers should be thinking about, and clearly weren't when they put this together. And in many ways, when you make this like huge distinction, is that there's this huge difference between people like me who you'll deem high functioning and people who you deem low functioning. In many ways, you're insulting both of us a lot. Like, you're minimizing my needs just because I'm willing and capable of performing for you. And you're minimizing the strengths of the people who either can't or won't. The toll that masking takes on people who present like me.
Masking refers to that intellectualized performance some do in order to appear neurotypical.
Who are often, strangely, girls, is very, very heavy and can lead to a whole host of other problems like drug and alcohol issues. Wait, why did you show those videos? And depression and anxiety and all kinds of comorbid issues. So this whole bit is just to say that this is incredibly hurtful. And like, I'm so disappointed in how this show decided to portray autism. And then there's also something to be said about the fact that the thing that causes it in this show is the mother's trying to get help for migraines and migraine pain. And as somebody with chronic pain, it doesn't rub me the right way how these mothers, their children become disabled, including autism, as essentially the universe punishing them for trying to do something about their pain. Like, it doesn't sit right with me. Don't like that. And the idea, it's just too close to anti-vax rhetoric and anti-vax nonsense for me to be okay with it. The fact that, yeah, again, spoiler alert, this big pharma company hired a hitman to go after the women talking about it, it feels very much in line with the victimization that those anti-vax people have, their logic, the way they think the world works. And I'm not okay with it. And it's super offensive, and it's throwing autistic people under the bus. From a disability standpoint, it is a yikes all around. Not to mention the pathologization, that's as close as we're gonna get, of the serial killers, the way that, you know, the serial killer mental illness, you're not crazy thing that we're gonna see. Also, when I watched on CBS's website, the captions were so off. So wildly off, and that is a major accessibility issue. They were unreadable. That's a problem. So Clarice goes snooping, and she finds some info that the dead lady hid in a pack of pads because a traditional husband wouldn't look there. Really? So like, if I get married to a dude, I can't just be like, hey babe, could you bring me a pad if I'm like in the bathroom and I forgot one? It occurs to me while I'm editing that typically pads are kept in the bathroom, or like, whatever. Like, what's the point in being married? She had 2 of his children and he can't go look at a pad? Why is she hiding this research from her husband anyway? Like, it feels like the show creators, who are men, heard of the concept of somebody who has a period hiding stuff in their like pads or tampons, and they were like, yes, and Clarice is a woman and girl power, she would think of that, let's add it. Like, let's just throw it in. But like, why is this husband not allowed to know anything? Okay, so Clarice asks the nonverbal autistic son if he knows a lady called Rebecca, which, like, there could be lots of Rebeccas. Not necessarily the one who's tied to this case, who's also doing research. And this kid turns and looks her dead in the eyes and nods. Well, we can't tell exactly if he's looking her in the eyes, but his eye line looks like he would be looking into her eyes. And it's just kind of weird because, like, there are some autistic people who could do some eye contact. There are some autistic people who do too much eye contact. But you're gonna try to make him, like, stereotypically autistic and then not add one of, like, the very common autistic traits of not doing eye contact. Like, do you know anything about autism, or were you just you know, looking to use it as a hot plot point so you could gather all the anti-vax mummies? Pro tip, look at the space in between the eyes, or look at their nose, or I would look at people's mouths, but, you know, masks, so we can't really do that right now. Clarice finally realizes that all these people are whistleblowers about this clinical trial, and Ardelia threatens to put whoever the bad guys are in this Death Note journal she has. So they go to this lady Rebecca's house, and Esquivel is like, this car outside has no license plates. That's the bad guy. So, you know, they go in the house, and what do you know? He just happens to be there trying to murder her as they show up. Convenient. He's also just like standing there waiting for her to die slowly or something so he can make it look like a whole thing. Dude, like why? Why is he trying to make it look like a serial killer? Just kill him and be done with it, dude. So then there's another scene where she has to chase and fight him in the house, and it's kind of like the Buffalo Bill one. I feel like a lot of the chase and fight scenes are really forced in there. This one does make more sense than when they chased that ableist lady, but it's still weird how she nailed Buffalo Bill in the head in the dark on like one try, but then she can't shoot this guy running down the stairs. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that makes sense. I don't understand guns. Other than these ones, I'm just kidding. This is all fat. So Clarice catches him and then she goes,
You're not crazy.
Clarice, I don't know how to tell you this, but like, yeah, sometimes people do murders for reasons totally unrelated to their mental health. Can you believe? She's also interrogating this lady who was almost murdered, who's on death's door, who's going into the ambulance. Like, I don't think she can answer your questions now, Clarice. Krendler is big mad that this guy is a hitman and not just a serial killer. And it's like, why? Are you in on this conspiracy? So she gets, you know, more of the flashing paparazzi lights, and she has to go talk to them. She says this, which really annoyed me.
I was just a kid, but I went to my pastor and I asked him, whose stories are worth telling? Who's it worth hearing? And he said, never let anyone decide that for you.
As they show the autistic kid, when, like, did you have autistic people help tell this story? Because I don't think you did. Because I don't think autistic people would want any part in this. And especially considering a common saying among autistic people is nothing about us without us, referring to problematic media like this that depicts us in such a, like, that depicts this. She also, like, announces that it wasn't a serial killer, and she also says that she's gonna stay on the case, although, like, Clarice, do you get to decide that? I don't think you get to decide that. Okay, well that's the CBS's Clarice, and that was exhausting. I'm gonna give this like two or 2.5 stars. It's not the worst, definitely not the worst that, you know, CBS has come out with, but like it's the ableism for me. It's this really goes into like anti-vaxxer territory, and like there is something to be said. Like you could have like big pharma be a villain in a certain way, but to be like, and they're bad because they're causing autism, be scared. It just gross, bad. I don't like it. And then for this to come out around the same time as Sia's thing, which looks terrible. Am I gonna watch the rest of this show? Well, Captain? Oh my God, my cat has a hairball. I mean, that's how I feel about this terrible show too, Captain. So after that pilot, am I gonna watch the rest of the show? Well, no.
And now for script doctoring with Emily.
Personally, I would have made Buffalo Bill like a cishet guy who like murders women and is like trying to make like a doll or something into like the one who got away or something like that, and he has to kill different women because like this girl has her eyes and this girl has her, like, I don't know, femur or something, because that would still tie him to Hannibal Lecter in terms of them using bodies for utilities. You know, like Hannibal Lecter uses body for food, and then Buffalo Bill would use bodies for like arts and crafts.
Hit that bell button, baby, won't you like and subscribe? If you're still here, comment bar.